Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Tech Naija FM. I'm your host, Babatunde Esanju, and today we're diving into a topic that sits at the heart of Africa digital futures, how we architect system that can truly scale. And today, I'm opportune to have someone who has been in the industry for a while now, and he has worked on different products. He has built a lot of system in Nigeria and outside of the country. And currently is the CTO of GIG Mobility. And I think most of us know about GIG. So he has been one of the people that powers the engine behind the GIG Mobility. And today I'm happy to welcome Mr. Kenneth, who is going to be joining us on today's episode of Tech Naija FM, and we'll be talking about architecting Africa digital backbone, where he's going to tell us some of the things that he has done, where we can learn one or two things from there. Mr. Kenneth, thank you for joining us today. That your audio is not really clear. I don't know if you
Okay.
can hear me
Can
properly.
you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes, yes. It's better now. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. So very happy to be here. And I believe we are going to have a very great time chatting about so many things within it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth. Before we go deep dive into the conversation for today, we basically want to know you, how your journey started. Because some of us, when we started this journey, we actually want to become a doctor and the likes. But along the line, we found ourselves inside programming, doing building solutions and the like. So we basically want to know you, how the journey started for you before moving into the role of CTO.
Okay. Next question. For me, I've always wanted to be an IT person, but I started this journey when I finished secondary school. So I got into development. But one thing I was learning back then was HTML and CSS. So I was having a conversation with someone recently where we're talking about this issue of AIs and what's AI good for and all of that. And then I recalled how I started development because these days people use AI to maybe create their things, but they don't understand how it works. So when I started my own journey, I started with hands-on development and I was using Notepad to write my codes. So it made life a bit complex back then. But the truth is, after so many years, I realized that I took the right decision and I did the right thing. And I was using the right tools to learn, which was like trying to understand what happens at the back end, trying to understand what those codes that are automatically being generated from all of the GUIDs and all of the IDs I can use to write programs today. Back then, it was more of you don't have artificial intelligence that you can rely on for things. So I started off as a front-end developer, and then I started having interest within backend because all I was doing was just to consume APIs. But I needed to understand how those APIs were created. So that curiosity led me into backend development, and I started learning backend. I've been a Microsoft person, so I love the Microsoft technologies. So I started learning ASP.NET, and that curiosity also grew to like, okay, how do you even architect a good system? And then I started diving into architecture, and then all of that, I started doing different bits. So that's how I became more like a full stack developer, and by the side, started diving into architecture as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's actually, I don't know that you started from Notepad. Back in the days, it was actually Notepad because it was all these IDE that we're using now. It's just to back up the Notepad stuff that someone like you has used in the past. And I don't think now you can tell anyone to go and start using Notepad to start writing code, and they will like, I'm not.
Nobody wants to take that pain or that part anymore. Nobody wants to do that anymore.
Well, okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so let's dive into the conversation for today. So you've actually developed a complex system because to architect a project like GIG solution is actually a complex one based on the things that I've seen and I've researched about. So when we talk about building Africa digital backbone, what comes to your mind first?
So one of the things that comes to mind would be whatever it is that is sustainable for the future. So it's not about now, it's not about today. So when you talk about even backbone itself, talking about something people can rely on. You're talking about
Yes.
creating like the foundation. You're talking about building something people can leverage on, you know. So all of those type of things, this brings me to like the conversation about how we built GIG, ERP and all of that. What you need to recall is that the ERP at GIG was the first online booking platform in Nigeria. So, and today that has formed the backbone of everything that has to do with online booking for bus, like that for transportation. So when people want to build things or softwares that works as a booking engine in Nigeria, people always try to like reference what we've done at GIG Mobility as the standard. So that's a typical example of building something like a backbone where people can rely on. If, for instance, people want to understand how bus booking works, what they are going to think about or look for is how GIG Mobility system works. Thinking about it, this was an application that was big over, I think 8-9 years ago, and is still very relevant today. I mean, so many updates and all of those things. But the most important thing about it is that we've set a standard to say this is how things should be done, and this is how we can sustain it. So building something that is very sustainable, that is scalable, is what I would define as building something like a backbone where people can leverage on and reference at any point.
Thank you so much. That reference point that you talked about actually stick to my mind because there are some funders that I know about that they basically want to quickly build out something that they don't even want you to build, as in the foundation to be solid enough. What they actually want is, let's get MVP out. Let's quickly build something so that people can start using it. They don't want to bear that particular pain of, let's build scalable system from the get-go. So those kind of funders, how do you think we can actually explain things to them in an architectural way so that they will know that what we actually want to build, we need to make it solid from the get-go? Because now, if you are just building for Nigeria, that's a separate entity. But if we are building globally, then we need to make sure that we need to architect a scalable system from the get-go. Those kind of funders, how do you think we can actually talk to them that they can give us like maybe enough time to quickly to build something solid and scalable for them?
Okay, so for that kind of situation, you know, it depends on the objective of the business, the founder, and what they're trying to achieve. So if you are looking at a sustainable system, if you're looking at something that is scalable for the future, you need to put in time, effort into making sure that whatever you're building is sustainable. So what people tend to do is tilting towards what you said, like what you described, where people want to go into the market quickly if you what they call MVP. And even most times those MVP are not even stable because they have like strict timelines that they need to meet and how to quickly get into the market and get maybe investors and all of those things. So, but in the long run, that backfires because what you end up doing is you end up spending more time trying to fix that system. You end up spending more time even rebuilding the entire system. That's
Yes.
what happened. That's typically what happens because you build the MVP version A, you already know that version A is not sustainable. So when we talk about architecture, so that means most times people tend to build what we call a monolithic system where you are just building things that are tightly coupled. You are not thinking about separation of concerns. You're not thinking about what will happen. You're not thinking about microservices and how this can be scaled. You're not thinking about adding more features to it. So you are building for now. You're not thinking about the future. So which is very, very important. So for all of those kind of founders, my advice is take your time, build what you believe is going to be scalable. Each time I talk about architecture, one thing that always comes to mind, which I've been emphasizing on this call is scalability. So don't think about having just 1,000 users. Think about a scenario where your 1,000 users goes to 10 million users. How does your system manage that traffic? How does it sustain itself? And all of those type of scenarios are things you are going to be thinking as a founder who is thinking about the future. Instead of just thinking about now, building a system that just works for today, but it's not something you can depend on maybe later. You understand? So those kind of founders, I would advise, give more time, build your product. Yeah, you can think about MVP in a way where you say, this is what we have in the pipeline. We want to build product A, which are going to have XYZ features. But right now, we can't have all of those features. We have all of those in the pipeline. But the MVP you are building, let it be solid. Let it be something that you are then going to build upon. So your MVP is more like your foundation. That is what you are relying on. Because you take, for instance, if you build a house, let's say you are building a house and the foundation, you think about, oh, I just want to build a bungalow. It's possible that that foundation can allow you to build a duplex on it. But think about it in this scenario. You started the foundation as a bungalow and you now want to create a skyscraper on that building. It's not going to work. So you're just going to mess things up. That is why it's very important to think about what the future is going to be like for your product and take time and then ensure that you build the right things.
Yeah, building the right thing always takes time. We should not
Yeah.
basically rush into into just building for building scale. Like you mentioned, we need to build for scalability. Yeah, so you also mentioned something regarding monolithic and microservice. I'm not really sure what you started with when building the GIG applications, but how do you determine when a system should actually remain on the monolith or the system is actually ready to transition into microservice?
Okay, so this is a very interesting part. You know, when you talk about monolith applications, you're talking about applications that everything is tightly coupled. You think about it, you are a developer, you've been writing code, so you've been doing all of this stuff, you understand all of this is very well. Now, if you want to build an application right now, it will take you 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, or maybe a week for you to build an API. The quickest way for you to build that kind of API is for you to like go through the routes of monolith approach. And that's the quickest way going to the market. That is one major advantage that has over microservice. Now, for like GIG Mobility, when we started, there was nothing like microservice within the business. So we didn't even think about microservice. At that point, all we were concerned about was we just wanted to build a booking platform. So it was when we started thinking about maybe getting requirements from the business about maybe inventory maintenance and all of those other features. That's when we knew the right approach to this type of application is going to be a microservice. So now to answer your question, how do you determine what kind of system we want to build? So first thing is, what is the requirement? What is the business requirement? That's number one thing. The second thing is, how quick do you want to go into the market? So those two questions, once you answer those two questions, you'll be able to determine, I think the right approach is for us to go into this. So the truth is this, let's not just get too excited about microservices. Not every application or every solution needs microservice-driven architecture. No, not everything. So if you're not doing a very small endpoint, let's say to return a list of states, for instance, you don't need to make it a microservice. You just create an API that's going to do all of that for you. So people just think every architecture has to be API microservice driven. No, it's not. It's not meant to be so. So if you are building a very smart application, the right thing, and maybe you are building something that is not going to even be maybe frequently used and all of that, very small application, you don't need the microservice architecture for that. So now when you think about what is going to be sustainable, how big your application get, and what are like the business domains you are covering. So if you know you now have different business domains, you now start thinking about structuring your solution in a microservice way. So for instance, if I were to build GIG Mobility from scratch right now, I'm not going to build it as a monolith application. No, I won't. I will rather start building it because I know all the business domain, all the features that will be coming, that I know this is going to be microservice. Then I'm also going to be thinking about event driven and all of those type of things. So the whole thing boils down to, what do you want the system to do? How quick do you want to go into the market? Once you're able to answer these two questions, you can then determine, I think the right thing for me to do is to use option A or option B. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Even though the monolith and the microservice, they have their own advantage and disadvantage. I also think that when you consider microservice as an architecture that you want to use, you also need to consider the size of the people that want to work on it. For me, right, those kind of people that want to build like MVP, go to the market. Think, like you mentioned, it all depends on the business requirement. If monolith is going to be work for them, fine. If microservice is actually going to work for them, that's fine as well. Thank you so much for that. My next question is regarding where all of us came from, Nigeria as a case study. So when you're building solutions, especially this kind of GIG solution that you built, right? How are you able to resolve issues like network reliability and infrastructure? Because few days back, Cloudflare has an issue. Few weeks back, Amazon had an issue. So how are you able to design a system that remain good in this kind of situation?
So if I'm going to tell you we haven't been through all of that, that's a big lie. I remember a particular time where Microsoft Azure was down and the region you were hosting that region was affected. And then we were losing transactions, we were losing customer, and this downtime was over, I think, 3-4 hours. It was a very long downtime. It was not a 30 minutes or 1 hour downtime. It was a long downtime. So one great lesson that I learned had been like a backup and your failover plan to say what happens if you have maybe network issues, maybe your ISPs, maybe your service providers, and all. What happens when they go down? What are your plans? So one big lesson we learned from that was ensuring that you have something else you are relying on. So what we then did immediately that happened was to create replications, and we started replicating database. At this point, it was a very huge learning curve for us anyway. So we started implementing things like database replication, and we're using hot replica. We're not using the code or one. So we're using a replication whereby we're writing our queries and everything to two different databases at the same time. And that helped us to at least have not periodic backup this time, like have real-time backup of all our data and all of that. So next thing we then did was coming from the application part of point of view, what we now started doing was we now started saying, okay, we are going to be using Azure, that's fine. However, we needed to have another site backup for our app services and all of that. What we then started doing was to now host it in a different cloud provider. And then we now had some other domains that we're using. So those domains were more like for our APIs, the website, all of that. They were custom domains that we're using. When we downtime, what we then did was just to do a redirect from one domain to the other. And then we did all of that to some DNS and all of that. So what that helped us to do was that when there was downtime and we noticed that there was downtime, we had this tool as well that was querying for downtime, like it runs in the background, all of those things. And then once there is a reported downtime for over 5-10 minutes, just switch over. So when customers are trying to access the website and it's not going to, we just redirect them to the backup part of it, and they can do their transactions. So we are not losing customers, we're not losing money and all of that. So we have that real-time backup, and we have implementation that is sustainable to this, where if anything happens to server A, server B is always there to just like fire up and all of that. And so that's what we've done so far.
Yeah, I think that's actually the power of a good architecture. You've you've
Yeah.
already done all the hard works. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Thank you for that. So my next question is regarding this kind of season that we're going into, this Christmas season. We normally have a lot of people that want to travel back home, especially to the east. They want to go and meet their families here and there. So my next question is now that how do you undo something like a sudden traffic spike that happens during this season of events and the likes? What are the things that you put in place?
So these are things that we created like 20 years ago. So we do things like auto scaling, basically, and we try to like ensure that if, for instance, we have 1,000 customers coming to the website in like 10 minutes, for instance, and that becomes 20,000, 30,000 customers times like buy ticket or browser application or maybe make requests to our APIs. So what we do is on Azure, we have these auto scaling, which does use metrics to scale. So those metrics it's looking for will be like CPU usage, memory, and all of that. So what usually happens is within this period, we spend more on infrastructure. So because we are expecting loads of traffic and all of that, so our system is able to reliably ensure that those traffic are actually all accommodated. We don't lose track of any of those things. So within those busy periods, even in the morning when buses are being loaded as well, there's always a spike where all the terminals are using the applications at the same time. So what would
Okay.
better look us using the auto scale. So when we did migration some time ago, where we now centralize some of those things, started using things like load balancers. So what those load balancers were doing for us is to distribute our traffic in different applications and VMs. So what was happening was the load balancer determines which VM or which application is going to send the traffic to. And we use a mechanism that is, so we're not using round robin, we're using list connection. So what that list connection does is that it's a kind of load balancing technique where we are looking for the VM or the app service that has the least connection, and we're going to send the new traffic to that one. So if, for instance, now there might be some endpoints that are heavy, maybe someone is trying to do a report, so that endpoint is very, very heavy, for instance, and it might just be two people trying to do that same thing, but we have some other endpoints that are let's say top price. People can access that at that endpoint, and the 20 traffic we're having there does not even equate two people accessing another endpoint via another, let's say VM. So the least connection here, you think is the VM that has just two connections. No, it is actually the other VM that has 20 people connected on it, but the usage there is very, very minimal. So you can direct the traffic to that other one. So we've done all of this implementation over the years, and that has helped us to be stable. I can tell you for free, for so many years, there hasn't been any downtime because we've ensured that we are very heavy on technology. So we just ensure that there's always the things we leverage on if we need to implement maybe security, load balancing, the distribution of traffic, and all of those things. We already had all of that.
Wow, you've already done the hard work. You're just managing what you've done. I can imagine. I can imagine. Wow. That's good. So we're in the era of AI now. And the first thing that you also mentioned, you mentioned something about AI. So are there ways that you think the logistics or the mobility ecosystem in Nigeria or Africa are basically ripe for AI-driven automation?
Yeah, most of industry are actually right for AI automation. Give it a clear example. There are a couple of things that you shouldn't have customer service representation for. So you take, for instance, customer wants to know the cost of a ticket or the cost of shipping from one point to the other. The customer does not necessarily have to call in to ask. say how much is it, how things and all of that. You should be able to build something that can do all of those things for the customer. So maybe you have like a chatbot, and if the chatbot is going to be very interactive and it's going to ask questions like, what is the weight of this item, or where are you traveling from, where are you going to, what date, and all of that. You just automate all of that process. So once it gets all your, let's say, your questions, you also be able to automatically process that information. So if, for instance, let me stick with logistics, for instance. If you want to send an item from, let's say, Lagos to Abuja, for instance, and you say the item is weighing 5 kg and the drop off, let's say it's from a home delivery, for instance. And then all of that information, AI tells you this is the estimated amount, or this is the cost, or the actual cost of doing that shipment. Your system should also be able to tell the customer, do you want me to reserve this, to make this reservation? He says yes. The chatbot automatically goes, take your name, receiver name, send that name, all of that, and automatically create that shipment for you. Next thing you should be able to just see is a link for you to make payment. And you make payment, then you get your way bill, and someone comes to the house to pick it up and all of that. So these are automated things that people can do and leverage on AI. You take for instance, when you're talking about transportation, you should be able to maybe leverage on things like let's say Siri, or maybe Google Alexa and all of that, to say, I want
Yeah.
to travel to so and so place. And then you should also automatically be able to like reserve that ticket for you. And it has your name, your phone number, and all of those details. It should be able to automatically reserve it for you. So these are things that people can leverage on. And another thing can leverage on the artificial intelligence part of this is we should also be able to look at trend. So you take, for instance, let's say a trader who travels every week from Lagos to Aba. The system should automatically be able to like prompt the person, will you be traveling to the east at so and so time? Or do you want me to make a reservation for you? And once you say yes, it should be able to automatically create that reservation for you. So those are things that we can leverage on in terms of AI.
Yeah, like I didn't even thought of that part before, but I know that AI is growing fast. A lot of companies are going into incorporating AI into their processes. That's why I just asked that particular question, just to know what you're actually planning with regards to AI that is actually everywhere nowadays. Even in my kids' school, everything is AI now. A lot of things
Okay.
just saying AI. So I want to also ask a question regarding the culture, right? Because you've been in the system for a whole lot of years, right? You've worked with different teams, you've worked with different people. How do you think engineering culture make it easier to build scalable system?
So the end goal is for you to have a product or a system that people can use. And the key people are the hands-on developer. I've been in that position before, where
Yeah.
I have to like go down what this thing. So that part of that culture of letting people understand that your job is critical to the success of this business. So I see software developers as doctors. So, the way doctors are important to save lives is the same way I see software developers, where they are the ones the users are heavily relying on. So if we take, for instance, go to the hospital, you have to tell the doctor, this is what you are feeling, this is how you are feeling. Doctor diagnoses you and tell you this is what he believes or she believes the issue is, and gives you a prescription and helps you solve that problem. That is the exact same thing the developers are doing. Someone comes to you and tells you, this is the idea. It is now your job to now programmatically bring that idea or that product to life. So having the first thing I always tell people is you need to sell that idea to that developer. Let that developer have that buy-in to say, I believe in this mission, I believe in this product. Very important. So that by the time he or she is building or working on it, he or she has that mindset, that mentality that he or she is building for the future. He or she is building something that people will use. There is this happiness that I usually feel when especially when I was working as a front-end developer, something and we go live. and I'm able to access that thing, not on my computer this time. I can access it via the internet, say on my phone, another place. I feel that happiness. I feel that release that this thing is finally live, you know? So that's joy of building something is a culture that we need to like put on the mind of the developer to say you are creating a solution that the general public is going to use. Then you need to start thinking about how you're going to make it better, how you're going to make it scalable, how you're going to make it very reliable. All of those things, not just because you want to get this code out, to write what they call like spaghetti code and all of those things. Oh, think about it, take your time, do your testing, and then go through the right process to ensure that whatever it is that you have built is something that is sustainable for the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. Building something that is sustainable for the future is actually the key because we are not building for this current moment. If your system is not able to accommodate a lot of things in the nearest future, that means you're just building for this current particular time. And like you rightly mentioned, I think I've got one or two things because what you've done in the past, you are still enjoying it during this kind of issue with Cloudflare, Amazon, Azure, and the likes. Your system is able to actually stand still, even with all those ups and downs with those kind of infrastructure. My next question is going to be: you've been the engineering leader for some times now, and people want to actually have like a mentor that can basically hold their hands because especially programming is not something that you can do on your own. You will definitely face one or two issues, and you need someone that can hold your hands to, okay, I've passed through this particular stuff before. Let me quickly explain it to you. I don't even need to help you to write the code. Let me just give you explanation. Are you available for that kind of mentorship? I know you might have been doing it for some people, but there are a lot of people that actually ask me for some of these things. That do I have someone that they can rely on to do mentorship, to mentor them? Are you basically available for this kind of thing, sir?
So the challenge that I usually get when people maybe tend to ask me for mentorship and if that is time constraint, having a full-time job. Yeah, I actually still do that. The only thing is we just need to structure it in a way where everybody's time is fully utilized. So we take, for instance, um, if someone comes to me, maybe a new person and says he or she wants me to maybe guide him or her on how to become a good front-end developer, for instance, then what I've always been doing is, even though I'm not going to teach you what I'm just going to tell you is go and learn this programming language. Maybe I want to say go and learn the apps or start with HTML and all of that. So I will guide you, then tell you, give you like links and they tell you the kind of courses you should go and take, maybe on through our site or maybe any of the learning platforms that you want to use to learn. And I will guide you on all of that. And then maybe when you build something, I can have a look at what you've built and tell you next time this is how you should be able to get this thing better and all of that. Then maybe try to talk to you about structuring your code and all of that. That's what I've been doing basically. In terms of having, it just depends on how we're going to structure the whole thing. Most times it's going to be weekends like this where I think have like free time and then we can have all of that conversation.
Thank you so much. Should in case I have someone or people that basically want to go into programming that and they need the mentorship, they need engineering leaders that can basically hold their hand, I will just shoot them your way. I will just shoot them your way. Before we round up, we're getting close. Our time is wagon. I want to ask this final question. What skill or technology should African engineers, right, start embracing now? Because we're in the world of AI, what should they start embracing now to build the next generation of scalable system?
Many people should embrace AI, we should start having focus on machine learning. With AI, a lot of things are possible. What AI helps a lot of people do, or a lot of people achieve, is that speed that you need to like do your business, all of those things. So AI gives you that leverage. So if you don't take full advantage of it, so there are so many potential that are yet to be analyzed as far with the artificial intelligence and all of that. So you need to know or understand how to take advantage of what AI is right now. So for people who are just building, you can simplify so many things. So for instance, as well, if you look at the new registration, Google, for instance, have simplified it. So you don't actually have to fill all those long forms. You can automatically log in, register using some profiles and all of that. So that's something that people should be taking advantage of. And in terms of building for the future as well, people right now, when they are building, you should be thinking about how to build systems that are smart, intelligent systems that automatically does certain things. So one of the things that I did was a very simple process. So for instance, if you are filling a form, let's say you want to travel, you're filling a form. If you select, let's say, um, in your where you select your master, you should automatically know you are a male. So in that form, at the bottom there, it should just tell you male. So that is a way of simplifying that filling of form. If you select message, just tell you you are a female. The person can proceed to like fill in the other part of the forms and those type of things. So I think people should just start thinking about building smart solutions, smart systems that would simplify user life. At the end of the day, we should have a very good customer experience. Because think about it like this: for every system that you are building, key thing is having to build a successful system that satisfies customers. So that customer satisfaction is the most important thing. You're not building a system for yourself, you are building it for customer users, and they need to be satisfied when they're building our system. I've heard this thing before, like most of my bosses, they tell me that when you're building a system and you need to show the user how to use that system, it means your system is not good enough. It means the usability part of it is very, very bad. So your people should be able to pick up your system, whether it's a mobile app or website. They don't need to call your customer service to ask them how to use that application. So building something that is very simplistic is the key. That's just how I'm going to summarize that.
Yeah, building simplicity. The user interface should be straightforward because
Yeah.
asking someone that how am I going to use Facebook, you'll be like Facebook. So that's actually the key. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It has been a wonderful conversation regarding this particular topic. What you actually mentioned about technology is not about just writing code. Code is one part of it. Building a scalable system is a whole lot because your system should be scalable. When you talked about the growth, it should also be able to accommodate growth across different continents because people are not only using your application in Nigeria, they're using it across, right? So if you've not put in a lot of things apart from code into it, it won't be uh globally used. So everyone listening to us, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Tech Naija FM. I know you will have picked one or two things. Should in case you want to catch all our previous episodes, you can check our channel on YouTube. There are quite a lot of things that you can pick from there. Mr. Kenneth, thank you so much. It's not easy to have you on the show because I know how busy you are. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I think I have few comments here from YouTube. So there is a question that talks about what does it think about Isaac performance today. I don't know about this question. I don't know about this. But later, should in case Mr. Kenneth is unable to answer any of these questions, I'm going to push it to him and he can basically reply on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time today. To everyone, to all our listeners listening to us across, right? Like I do say, keep building, keep learning, keep pushing. I so much believe that all of us, we are actually pushing towards Africa digital story. To everyone, please stay awesome out there. Thank you so much and bye for now.